Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Red and White Authority, episode 14, I believe. I'm starting to lose count on these things, but I believe it is number 14. I'm Art Regner, along with USA Today Hockey Hall of Fame writer Kevin Allen, as the Red Wings win a big hockey game last night, scoreless after one period against the Carolina Hurricanes, who had played the night before against the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo. They fell behind, I believe it was actually 4-0 before the Carolina Hurricanes got going against the Sabres. Came on very strongly, lost the game 4-3. So the Hurricanes played a very spirited game last night, in my opinion, for a team that's really going nowhere in, the old playing for pride. But Red Wings took a 1-0 lead in the second period. Carolina scored 2 goals. Detroit enters the third period trailing 2-1. And then, lo and behold, maybe a bad goal given up by the Carolina goalie, but Nyquist scores. Zetterberg had scored a goal in the second period on the power play, and then Pavel Datsyuk, lo and behold, scores the game winner. The Red Wings win by a score of 3-2. Looked pretty good that they were going to clinch the playoffs because Pittsburgh had a 3-2 lead against the Ottawa Senators in Iowa. I almost said Iowa for some reason, but in Ottawa, and because of but with the goalie pulled, the Senators came back from a 3-0 deficit, scored the game-tying goal with about 1:10 or something left like that, and then they won in overtime. Mr. Stone again, this guy has been incredible, scores a goal, and lo and behold, the Red Wings pretty much find themselves in the same position. They just need 2 points in their last 2 games. That's the easiest case scenario for Detroit. They're masters of their own destiny. They have to win 2 points. They just need 2 points. Any way you can slice it at Montreal on Thursday night, or in Carolina for a rematch Saturday evening. So I know there's all kinds of scenarios played out. Let's bring Kevin in right now. Kevin, a very big win for Detroit, and I think 3 things that were very instrumental in winning and something that the Red Wings needed. 1, Zetterberg gets off the schneid and scores a goal. 2, Jimmy Howard played very, very well, made 30 saves, I believe. And 3, Pavel Datsyuk, who's now again on one leg, scores a game winner. And Zetterberg, Z, and Pav were reunited. So the guys that needed to perform last night for Detroit did perform for Detroit. Hopefully that bodes well as they go on this 2-game road trip to close out the season.
Well, I agree with that assessment. I think it's right on the money. And, it's almost as if Zetterberg called himself out. It was, it wasn't quite as dramatic as the Mark Messier, I guarantee a win. But, he basically said he needed to play better. And he came out and he played well, and he got on the board. I mean, the goal that he scored, even though he was wide open on that, I mean, it was a great shot. He saw the opening he had, and he lifted it up off the goalpost and into the net. It was a big-time goal, and the Datsyuk goal was needed. And then the other thing that struck me about that game was all of the players that the Red Wings must have play well in order to be successful in a playoff series. And I'm talking about Tatar, Nyquist, Datsyuk, and Zetterberg all played well in that game. Tatar had chances. He showed his, he was driving the net. Nyquist obviously, had an important performance as well. And I think if they're going to do anything in the postseason, they have to have those 4 players, playing at a high level. And as you said, this is a big game for Howard, just as we finally figured out Babcock, and we had it right. He went to it with Howard as we expected, and I thought he reasserted himself yesterday. He looked confident. He looked like he was ready to be the guy, the goalie that he was at the start of the season. I think it comes at the right time. I don't think I think the way fans who watch that game probably came away saying if he plays like this, we don't have any goaltending questions or issues. So I thought it was a good performance. They needed to come from behind. They did that. All the guys that needed to perform, did. I thought the defense, although it had some lapses, for the most part, played the way they need to play in order to be successful. And I think we've always expected them to make the playoffs. We've said so continuously, but now it looks a lot better, even with the big comeback win by the Senators, and it was an impressive win. The Red Wings are in good shape now. In addition to getting either 2 points themselves, if Ottawa starts missing out on points, that plays a role as well. And a big game for Boston tonight. They have 3 games. If they should lose that game, then again, that's helpful to Detroit. But I think there were a lot of positive signs in last night's game.
Well, there certainly was, and I really think, and maybe again, being sports psychologist, which obviously I am not, but you're right. Zetterberg kind of called himself out, but when a captain calls himself out, in a strange sense, isn't he sending a message to the rest of the team that if this guy's saying I got to pick it up, it's time to look in the mirror, boys, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, absolutely. But what I really liked was how Babcock dealt with that situation, where he basically said he felt bad that everybody was sort of dumping on Zetterberg, and I understand that sentiment. I've watched a lot of hockey through the years, and I've seen a lot of guys and who play and are team leaders, and Zetterberg is has to be ranked among my top 20 guys in terms of ability to both play and lead and fulfill all of those roles. And to see him at this stage of his career sort of being blamed for Red Wing failures, it is a little bit disconcerting. That's not how we view Henrik Zetterberg. And I thought he sort of made a statement with his level of play, sort of reminded everybody, hey, I'm still a premium player. I'm still a blue chipper. I'm still a guy you can count on in the big games. And I always had felt that anyway. As I said in the last podcast, 30 NHL teams would love to have Zetterberg. And, as you get older, your scoring declines. That's just a fact of life. But I don't see him as being a player who needs to go on the third or fourth line. Not yet. So I think there were still some pretty positive signs, and just as you said, I think Zetterberg, in his own subtle way, told everybody, "Hey, we got to get it together. I need to get it together first, and if I play well, you boys need to play well behind me." So it was a very effective game for the Red Wings, and again, it was against a team that isn't very high in the standings. So now it's important for the Red Wings to play well against Montreal. I think you need to sort of demonstrate to everybody that, okay, we're ready for the playoffs now. Like yesterday's game was a good start, but now they need to play strong against Montreal. This needs to be a close game. There needs to be minimal mistakes. You got to play this game as if it means the playoffs, because it does. I mean, you can't just count on beating Carolina in the next game. You want to get it done now against Montreal.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I kind of like what the Red Wings were saying after the game, where reporters were saying, hey, well, when you went off the ice, you were pretty much in the playoffs, it looked like, because Pittsburgh was ahead. But, hey, Ottawa wins in overtime. I guess you're really bummed out. And they're like, no, I mean, we don't want, we control our own destiny. We don't want, in a strange sense, to back into the playoffs. We certainly do want to earn it, let's say, and be playing well and have some good habits. So I think that's always the mindset of a professional athlete, because they're competitive, and regardless on what team you are, because like I said, Carolina was playing back-to-back, had nothing really to play for. I know there's local ties with Peter Carmanos owning the team, and Gerby scored a goal, and he's from Oxford, Michigan, and you had Nestrasil, who the Red Wings had to put on waivers, and they claimed. I mean, so there were a few things going on. There was some incentive, but really, Carolina came in here, I thought, and gave Detroit their best shot and almost won the game.
Well, for sure, and Carolina has been a different team since Eric Stahl, came back from his injury, and Jordan Stahl was healed as well. I mean, if they could restart the season over, I think the Carolina Hurricanes would have been in the fight for one of those playoff spots. They just got off to a poor start and were never able to dig themselves out, even after Eric Stahl got healthy. And actually, Eric Stahl's had a real good season If you look at analytics, the advanced stats, it shows he's been a real strong puck possession guy this season, and has really played at the level that you would expect him to play at. And his play had sort of fallen off last season, so this is a pretty good sign. And it's funny, to start the season, there was a lot of talk about whether Eric Stahl, would be traded, whether it was time to move on and restart this team. I don't hear those whispers anymore. I think everyone sees Carolina could be fixed, relatively quickly. I would expect maybe a buyout of Semin, who is his contract that was signed by Jim Rutherford is now with the Penguins, just hasn't worked out for the Hurricanes, and now they'd probably be better off just to buy him out and eat that salary and move on. At least they're not paying the full freight; they can pay 2/3. So the Hurricanes didn't roll over and play dead. They gave the Red Wings all that you can, and if you're the teams competing at the bottom, if you watch that game, you're saying go Hurricanes, and you're pretty pleased at the effort they put out, because they didn't make it easy on the Red Wings.
No, they certainly didn't. And, I mean, we could look no further. Look at the Edmonton Oilers and what they did to the LA Kings last night. Last week, LA shells them in LA 8-2 or something, and then the Oilers came back and really have put a major blow into the playoff chances of the defending Stanley Cup champions. I mean, the LA Kings making it in the playoffs now. I think the only people that are happy today, well, I mean, some hockey fans are, is probably Canada, because they could quite possibly have 5 of 6 Canadian franchises could be in the playoffs. Except, of course, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which they may never be a playoff team again. I had to get my Leafs shot in there. But with that said, it's pretty incredible, because you would think a team like Los Angeles or a team like Detroit that, they're looking at 24 consecutive seasons, when they're playing the also-rans of the league, teams that have nothing, that in a fan's mind, you would think, my gosh, they should just pulverize these guys, whether it's at home or on the road. They're so much better. But I think we tend to forget, and I'm kind of repeating myself here, that the mindset of an athlete is losing is not an option, regardless of what their record is, and that these games are going to be competitive. And I think sometimes the team that's on top might forget that, but certainly the team on the bottom never forgets that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm always offended on behalf of the players when I hear people talking about tanking as if it extends down to the players and the coaches. It never extends that far down. Like, the Buffalo Sabres players were not involved in the tanking of this season. Like, this was an ownership management decision. They set up this team to fail. And the players went out every night and tried to disrupt that thinking, and then the GM Tim Murray took it even further by, he had 2 goalies that were performing at a high level, so he traded them away. That looks like legitimate tanking, but players are never involved in that, just because of the reason you said, professional pride. Like, and it's not even in their best interest to tank. Like, some of these players that lost this season for the Buffalo Sabres in the effort to try to get Jack Eichel or Connor McDavid, they won't be around when those players are coming in, because these young players, they're going to be part of the rebuilding, are going to need roster spots, and they're going to take it from the guys who lost this season. So, usually that, and the other element here is the difference between the Anaheim Ducks and whoever squeezes in with that ace spot, the Winnipeg Jets, just isn't all that significant.
Right.
And the difference between the Ducks and the 9th and 10th place, it's not the old days where, the top teams, and you went into in the 70s and faced Philadelphia Flyers, you were, in for, or in the 80s, the New York Islanders, or, nobody can compete with the Oilers in the 80s. It's not like that anymore. Like, the difference is minimal. The Ducks are a good team and a flawed team. The Winnipeg Jets are a good team and a flawed team. The Dallas Stars are a good team and a flawed team at the same time. And I think that's the truth even, in the Eastern Conference as well. Like, would anybody be stunned if the Red Wings got it together and made a run? Well, of course not. Because, they look at their roster and they're, they still have Datsuk and Zetterberg and Tatar and Nyquist, and, Howard could get hot. and the same is true of the Boston Bruins, who are the eighth team, who can end up as the number 8 seed. I mean, they could win that. So there is a lot that goes into this, and the other aspect I would bring up is that this year the LA Kings, we kept waiting for them to flip the switch, but I don't know that they found the switch this season. They somehow have lost it. I mean, that's been their MO for the last 3 seasons, and they've piled up a lot of playoff wins, doing that. But this season they were unable to do that, and that's really sort of an interesting thing. Like, why is it that the Kings can't play well in the regular season? I don't think there's an answer for that.
No, I don't think so too. And not to belabor this point, but many athletes that I've talked to who do, as you very well know, Kevin, they do get upset when it's insinuated that they're tanking, or that they should tank, or because everyone wants to get the next second coming of the sport on their roster. But with that said, so many times players have said, if you're not really trying, or you're trying to go half speed, or you're trying to lose, chances are you're going to get hurt. I mean, you've got to play all out, because if you're going at half speed and the guy you're playing against is going at full speed, it's not so much that you're going to lose the game. You could actually, lose a limb, and they start laughing a little bit. But that's pretty much true. I mean, and I think when you're at ice level, and I know fans, especially in hockey, can probably appreciate this. Or for many years, when you get to go down on the field of a football game or something, and you see it that up close. I mean, it is competitive. And it's a bit vicious out there. I mean, these guys, as I like to say, the old cliche, they're playing for keeps. And if you're not playing for keeps, you're not going to be playing very long.
Yeah. Well, I say all the time that the physics of hockey are scary. When you think about that, the average player is now 6'2", 215, and he's skating 30 miles an hour, shooting a puck 100 miles an hour using graphite sticks. When these guys come together, it's like a car crash out there. It's and they're wearing suits of armor. The equipment they now wear has been weaponized. You get hit like that, it's like getting hit with blocks of granite. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to play at full speed. You can't play at half speed while someone else is playing full speed without risking further injury. And the game is so fast. Like I know even some of the fans who go to games all the time, they're up in the upper levels, and you can sort of feel the speed, but it's not the same as when you're at ice level. When you're down at ice level, and I'm not down there very often because I'm generally up in the press box, but I've been there, and I'm always just amazed at how fast the game is. There's literally no time to think about what you're going to do. It's all instinctual and repetition, and the guys that are the most successful are those that can make instantaneous decisions with the puck. But it's remarkably quick down there, and even on television, sometimes you can notice it how quick the puck goes the other way. To me, that's been the biggest change in the game. Like the move from offense to defense and then back to offense again is so incredible. A turnover, and we've all seen it because Mickey Rooney yells, "Uh-oh!" But there's a turnover. There's a turnover, and boom, it's the other way, and you can sense the scoring chance, even though it happened 125 feet away. The turnover happens 125 feet away, but because these guys are so incredibly skilled, you sense immediately that as Mickey would say, "Uh-oh," it's going the other way. So it's all pretty remarkable.
It is pretty remarkable. The one word that the hockey players say a lot that you don't hear a lot of other professional athletes say is the word bounce, as in fire the puck. I got the bounce, puck bounce.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're right. They really do have to turn on a dime, especially in that sport. And I think we sometimes, as corny as it sounds, we have a tendency to not realize these guys are skating. I mean, they do it so effortlessly, and I mean, that they're skating, but you kind of forget that, and obviously if you're skating, you can build up a lot of velocity, and it's a quick game, it's a fast game, and I guess the moral of this conversation is, if Red Wing fans, if you're expecting Carolina to tank it, certainly Montreal's not going to do that, but or any of these teams that are not in a playoff fight, but playing teams that are trying to position themselves or to get in the playoffs, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That's why, let's go back to the Red Wings here, is that it's really up to the Red Wings. I don't know if it was a good sign last night, and maybe a little bit of a disturbing sign, is because it was pretty apparent that Pavel Datsyuk did not have the jump he usually has, yet he was still able to make things happen, which is a testament to his talent level, his greatness, if you will. But Kevin, I would imagine best case scenario for the Red Wings would be, let's try to somehow get 2 points from the Canadiens on Thursday and give Pav at least a week rest off that knee, because the more he plays, obviously, he could be a game time decision throughout this playoff run if it continues where he has to play obviously at a high level, which he did. But again, without sounding too redundant here, it was pretty apparent he didn't seem to have, as I said, the same jump.
No, but he had it at the right times, and what I was struck by again yesterday is that part of his MO has been rising up in the when he's needed most, late in the games, or in this case, they needed a big goal and he got it. He was there to deliver, and it looked like he certainly was in a prime scoring area, but it didn't look as dangerous as it was, and it looked like the guy was on him, and suddenly, boom, he had it in the net. So, he delivered. Would either of us be shocked if he doesn't play the next 2 games? Maybe it was all he could do to get out there on that knee. Maybe we won't even see him. I think we are in that situation where it's just a day-to-day situation where he's got to make a judgment call of how much he can endure to play. It could be one of those. And again, it's hard for us to speculate because we never know the total extent of the injury, or if we're even guessing right that it's a knee. Could be something else entirely different. Although he obviously has had issues with his knee. So, I would agree. I think they would love to get this wrapped up and then rest him as long as you can, and and then hope for the best, because they're not really going to go anywhere unless they have their big 4 scoring, because they don't seem to get enough. They get some goals from that bottom group, but they're not getting them at the right times. Like, they've had some games where they've gotten a lot of goals, but it's not like they're getting that third goal when they need it in a 3-2 game from that group. So I think they're going to need their big 4 to score a lot of goals to make some noise in the postseason.
Well, I agree with you. And that goal that Datsyuk scored, if I remember the play correctly, I think Zetterberg fed it to him out in front of the net, but it hit his skate. He almost in one motion kind of kicked that puck forward and shot at the same time, and it was a great shot. You're right. It didn't look like that dangerous of a play, but because of his skill level and how quickly he reacted, I think he took everybody by surprise, really. I think, before you knew it, the puck came out, hit his skate, bam, he kind of kicks it up to himself, shoots, and it's in the net, and everybody's kind of looking around saying, did that just happen? He's that wonderful of a player. We've started off this the podcast today, the Red and White Authority, episode 14, and we've talked about everything, but one thing we haven't really mentioned, just a little bit, has been Jimmy Howard and his play and goaltending. And I guess I'm going to quote Tracy Chapman, who I thought I never would quote on this show. But in Jimmy's case, if not now, when? You know what I mean? He had to do it, and he finally did. Yeah. But that was a good sign, which again is a testament to Jimmy, because we can sit here and talk because we have the privilege of going into the room, getting to know these guys a little bit, not only on a professional level but on a personal level too. You build up relationships with people. That's just human nature. And Jimmy is competitive, and he's he wants to win a Stanley Cup more. I think more for the city of Detroit maybe than himself. He truly does. He's very focused, but he knew. Babcock handed them the keys to the car last night and said, either you're going to drive this to the promised land, or you're going to crash along the way and burn. But baby, this is your show.
Yeah, he will drive the Buick the rest of the way. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, my thought on last night is I thought it was funny when he gave up the rebound goal, and Mickey Redmond, who I think basically spoke for every fan in Detroit at that moment when he said, "Oh, that's a rebound he can't give up." But the reason why it was a rebound that he can't give up is because everyone is so nervous about Howard. Like, that happens in the course of a game all the time. You can't. It'd be nice if you could corral every rebound, but that's just not the way it happens. The puck sometimes it drives off the pads and it moves forward. You're going to give up a few rebounds here and there, but because of Jimmy's recent history, everybody was thinking that, not just Mickey. But the bottom line is he was very solid, and he, more importantly to me, is like, and fans. Detroit fans are savvy fans. Like, they know when Howard is on and when he's not, and they know when he's confident, when he's not. They almost seem to know it more than he does, because when he kept saying he was confident, and every fan in Detroit is saying, "No, Jimmy, you're not."
Come on, Jimmy, get real. You're talking to us now.
We're with you. We've cheered you, but we know it when you're not feeling it. And last night he was confident. You watched him play. He was solid. He was square to the shooter. Fans get nervous when he doesn't look confident, and he was confident. I don't think the fans were nervous in that game. It didn't feel like he was about to give up, a goal at the wrong time. And I think that's all you want. You just want to have a little confidence in your goalie when you're a fan. I thought. Howard, has proven that, as you said, he deserves to have the keys. He's driving now, and the talk of Mrazek is he's back being the #1 goalie again until he's not, as Mike Babcock would say.
Right. I don't decide their playing time; they do. I mean, I don't want to get all biblical, but Mike has a tendency to Pontius Pilate a lot of things. He just pretty much washes his hands and say, "Hey, look, you're looking at the wrong guy. Go talk to them." That's a question I can't answer.
I don't know that goalie. Yeah.
Yeah, right. What do you me making a decision? No way.
Yeah.
That's those guys. We're looking at it. Obviously, it does appear that Peter Mrazek. I haven't heard very much about the monster. I know he's been practicing with the team. I don't know, maybe with the way Thomas McCollum and Jared Careau are playing for Grand Rapids, maybe Jeff Blashill and his gang down there for the Griffins. I don't know if they'd like to see Mrazek come back for their playoff run, because they have a legitimate shot at winning their second Calder Cup in 3 seasons. But I'm under the impression that it's going to be Jimmy and it's going to be Mrazek from here on out. And, in the monster, unless there's injury, and hopefully there isn't, is probably, I don't know if seen his last days in Detroit, but certainly is not going to be part of this. And I know the last couple of weeks we speculated if it gets really bad in goaltending that, maybe they would give him a shot. Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think we have seen his final days. But, I don't think we've seen his final days in the NHL. I think he's an intriguing character still. I think still there are some teams that look at him as a kind of a 1B option, like he's an advanced backup goalie. I think that's how they view him. And so I think he'll have some options this summer. Just won't be in Detroit because they've got to find room for Mrazek, and Howard's going to be here as well, as long as things we don't have a repeat of what we saw for the last 2 or 3 weeks. That may create some self-doubts. But, right now I would say Howard and Mrazek will come back next fall, and we'll do this all over again. Who's going to be the goalie?
I definitely agree. And whether it's Mike Babcock or Jeff Blashill or Tony Granato or whomever, I expect it to be like, hey, it's not my decision, really. It's their decision. No. They're going to do it. Let's one thing, this is more like of a fan observation, and I guess when teams are playing poorly, but one thing that has been troubling to me throughout the whole season is, and I'm sitting here, when I'm at the game, I'm certainly not in the press box. I'm not screaming at the Red Wings. I'm not pulling a Jim Fox, the fine broadcaster for LA, but he gets pretty emotional. is this habit of not being able to get the puck out of their own zone or having possession in your own zone and turning it over. It just seems that, like, once a team starts cycling on them, but they're in position to make plays and get it, it's just it's confounding to me that a team as skilled as the Red Wings are able, at most of the time, at times it seems like they're the team that when they get into the attacking zone are one and done, and the opposition is just playing keep away from these guys, and when they do have an opportunity to make a play, they don't make the play in their end. Am I just overreacting? Am I just being way too much of a fan and not really, because I do know the game and I kind of know what's going on, but it's unbelievable to me that a team like Detroit can have a team, the opposition, sustain pressure for what seems like forever in their end.
Yeah. Well, I see some of that. Like, I don't think it's quite as pronounced as that. You know, but I think it's real easy when you're a fan of a team to view it that way. And coaches, that's the way they speak. Like, nothing that the other team ever does has any impact on what their team is doing. You know, it's always, you know, we didn't get this done, and no homage is ever paid to, you know, players will. Players will say, well, you know, you got to give them some credit. You know, they played pretty well against us, but a coach won't do that. He'll just say, you know, my team didn't make an effort. But what I will say about the defense is you know, we've talked about this now for 4 or 5 episodes. I just don't think this defense is playing a simple enough strategy to be effective. When they were really good at the start of the season, their entire focus was just getting the puck out of their zone and then letting the forwards do what they do. And it was a very simple strategy, but it was very effective. And they've sort of gotten away from that. They've tried to be a little more fancy now, and I think they have to go back going into the playoffs to being, hey, you know, that puck goes in our zone, we got to get it out of our zone, right. like immediately. Like, if that puck is in our zone, somebody has made a mistake. We need to get it out, and you know, that's what they've got to do. And I think that's you know, when Brian Rafalski retired, you know, everybody talked about his power play loss, but I thought where he really affected the Red Wings was, like, there was hardly anyone better in the league at going back and getting the puck and getting it out of the zone. Like, you know, he could skate, so he could get back there in a hurry. He could retrieve the puck, go around the net, look up, find that guy, and get it out of the zone. Like, you know, that's a skill that you don't get talked about a lot, but that's a very important skill. Puck retrieval. Like, the Pittsburgh Penguins, when they hired Johnston, one of the reasons they hired him is because he came in and he talked about, after watching the films, of how he was going to change the puck retrieval system. And the Penguins thought theirs was a mess. And I think this is what they need to do, you know, going into the playoffs, is, you know, concentrate on just getting that puck out of the zone, and, you know, not worrying about, you know, hitting the guy, you know, skating through the zone. Just get the puck out and let the forwards worry about that. I mean, obviously you want to make a tape-to-tape pass, but, you know, my point is, you don't want to be too fancy. You just need to get it out.
Well, you know, what I find interesting, and maybe this is a criticism for the Red Wings that has been, you know, going on since, since you know, the mid-'90s when they started to come into their own as a franchise and be an elite level franchise in the NHL, was that the Red Wings are too cute, they're too fancy. You know, they always want to make the extra pass. And I'm sitting there, and, you know, I usually don't have a problem with it when they're in the attacking zone and they're trying to maybe score that perfect goal, you know, because, hey, they're showmen in a way, so they you know, they want to put on a little show. I understand that, but in your own end, they seem to be obsessed with, okay, I could chip it off the board, or I could, you know, just get it out. Oh, there's a guy on the other side of the ice. Let me try to thread the needle on him. I mean, I just sit there and go, what could you be thinking at that point? But then again, they're a young team still. They are pretty young. They do have some veterans. But I just watch that, and I just shake my head sometimes at the decision-making. But again, it's a fast game. You know, you've got guys bearing down on you. You know, we always forget about the opposition. You know, it's not like, you know, Bobby Knight always says, we never get beat by the opposition. The game beats us or we beat ourselves. Yeah. I mean, that's how Indiana lost every game. Well, hey, Michigan or Michigan State had nothing to do with it. You know, it was us. But but man, and maybe that just comes with experience, Kevin. Maybe as some of these younger defensemen get more comfortable, because I sometimes think, they're standing there, just before the puck is dropped in their end, and they look and they go, oh my gosh, I got the Red Wing crest here, I got the wing wheel on, I got to make a fancy pass right now. I've got to do something extraordinary. I've got to be highly skilled. I've got to be, we're the puck possession team. We're the Red Wings, doggone it, and we're going to get it done. I mean, it's just and you're right. It is. It's just keep it simple in that end, man. Just get the puck out. And I'm sure that the Red Wing coaching staff has probably tried to say that, but sometimes, highly competitive athlete, professional athlete, a little bit of a showman, they it gets lost in translation, I guess. I'm kind of venting here, Kevin. I don't even know if I have a question or not, making a point here. But, it's confounding that, and we're up top in the press pockets. We can see the whole ice. We can see what's going on. When you go down on ice level, and I've been down on ice level several times, actually, like right in the little where the Red Wing bench is at, standing behind, but when the play goes on, I can kind of get up there. It's amazing because your vision is cut off because you tend to forget there's 12 people while the other opposition, but there's 11 people on the ice at that time. It's really bright down there. That's another thing that I don't know if people realize. I mean, it is blinding down there. I mean, you can see, don't get me wrong, and there's people surrounding you. I mean, it's an environment where everything is going fast, just not the puck. I mean, so I'm trying to give them some leeway here, but my gosh, it just seems like their decision-making in their own end at times is just terrible.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree. I mean, I've been on this rant, too, for a while about how they need to play defensively sharper than they have. Part of it is, and I think you're right about the decision-making, I think the Red Wings view themselves as the ultimate puck possession team. I mean, that's what we say about them. The Red Wings, well, they're puck possession, and what that means is we have the puck more than they do. And I think players do get caught up in the idea, well, if we're going to possess the puck and we're going to be a puck possession team, then we can't just chip it out and give it back to them. We got to find a way to make sure it goes from Red Wing A to Red Wing B to Red Wing C, and they do get caught up in that. But I remember in the old Wayne St. Mary's football days and seeing the playbook, and the playbook always said on the opening page that if every man in this football unit does his job, each one of these plays will go for a touchdown. And I remember saying to the guy next to me, yeah, but what it doesn't say is if any guy on the other team does his job, all these plays will be stopped for no gain.
Right.
Because
right, exactly. You got to throw it out there and let's see what trial and error, right? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, because their playbook says if you just move, the linebacker moves in and plugs that hole, we're not going anywhere. But I got to tell one story about getting the puck out of the zone, which is always one of my favorites. I don't know if it's true or not, but I see a lot of games, even though I'm a national writer in Detroit, and I saw a lot of Red Wing games through the 90s, and I was always fascinated by, I believe the Red Wings were the first team to utilize that pass in front of the net to the defenseman who was guarding that. And older Red Wing fans all know what we're talking about. Lidstrom utilized it a lot, and I just assumed it was a Scotty Bowman deal. Scotty Bowman had come up with this and thought, they don't put anybody on that guy. He's standing there by himself. He's just in front of the net, making sure no one's coming through, and they've gotten the puck to him, and that allowed them to get it out. But I had a conversation with Scotty Bowman about it, 3 or 4 years after they were doing it, and he said, wasn't me. I didn't do it. He said the players just started doing it. And, maybe you can give Bowman credit for it, because if he didn't like it,
right,
they wouldn't have been doing it very long. But he basically said, Lidstrom and the defenders back then, they started doing it because Lidstrom was so comfortable with the puck all the time that and he thought it was effective, so he sort of let it go. But so I gave Scotty Bowman credit for that for years before he told me that it wasn't, he didn't start it, but obviously, he gave his blessing to it, or it wouldn't continue. But now you do see more and more teams do that because they sort of copied the the Red Wing style. But that Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, no, you're right. I mean, I completely agree with that. And that just is a testament to how great a coach Scotty was. I mean, he was not above. Hey, I like that. Or let's face it, he was a big fan of the Soviet hockey system. The 5-man unit. He saw that forever, and he salivated. What was the first thing when he got 5 really highly skilled Russians on the same roster? He put them together.
Yeah.
Which in a way kind of revolutionized the game a bit. Again, taking the NHL to a maybe John Cherry doesn't like it, from a less North American that a boy kind of punch in the face kind of league into a highly skilled league where everybody, all 5 guys are kind of on the same page. Kevin, because I think it's gotten to a point of, even in their heyday, how many times, especially on a power play, during a playoff series especially, but even during the regular season, where fans would start chanting, shoot the puck, because the Red Wings were so pass happy. Maybe now they can start saying, clear the zone, clear the zone. Just get the thing out, man. Just get it out. And we appreciate your high skill, and we know you've got, your passing skills are extraordinary, but let's just get the doggone thing out of there. But, Kevin, another thing that obviously we have to talk about in the Red Wings is that they're being really tight-lipped about Justin Abdicator. A lot of people, that I've talked to that cover the team have told me they don't expect Erik Cole, obviously, to play the remainder of the season, and they're kind of wondering, and I know we talked about this on Red and White Authority episode 13, that because of his history up there, that just looked like a really bad injury for a guy that has a history of being injured in that area. It just did not look good, and we wish him the best, and it would be great to have him back because he is a big body, and he did not play poorly for the Red Wings. I think he was just starting to really acclimate himself to Detroit and to Detroit's system. Johan Franzen, I guess, keeps making appearances at Joe Louis Arena. I don't know if he's going there because he likes the watermelon. Trust me, he's obsessed with watermelon. Because the Joe has the best watermelon. I mean, he's there. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing because it doesn't seem like he's any closer to getting on the ice and actually playing for the team. Of course, Abdicator, who 23 goals, I believe, has was one of those big tough players, as is Erik Cole, and to a certain degree, so is Franzen. He's a big body. I mean, these are 3 guys. Although Franzen, I think, is probably done. I'm just speculating on this part. These are at least 2 guys that they really could use in a playoff series. I don't know where Cole's at, and as I said, I think that's a real touch-and-go situation. Again, me just speculating. But Abdicator, as tight-lipped as they are, and I know that maybe he could play against Montreal, maybe he could play against Carolina, I'm not so sure, although they have been poo-pooed, that there isn't something to the fact that on that shot, which was pretty gruesome, the way he blocked it, that he didn't at least break a finger on his hand.
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly a distinct possibility. To be honest I would be shocked that he would, if he played in the next game. I mean, at this point, you want to give him as much time off as you can. I think the odds of making the playoffs seem pretty good. You could probably get in without him. So I think they're going to try to give him some time. And I noted on the broadcast that Kenny Daniels listed him as day-to-day, and I mean, usually the team broadcaster who hangs with the team has a pretty good sense, and they're usually cleared to give as much information as anyone. So I think they expect him back in short order, but I'm not sure how quickly that'll be. He could even miss even if he is legitimately day-to-day, he could still miss the start of the playoffs. You'd want to give him some time.
Well, I think, and this isn't really maybe a saving grace to the fact of where these players are injured or supposedly injured, because we know at this time of year they never really tell you. You've always heard from players that coming back from the waist down, an injury from the waist down is much tougher because you can't work your legs.
Right.
But they can at least stay in shape and have their legs. So let's face it. I just said we sometimes forget that they skate, but the skating is a very strenuous thing, and so I guess it's good that he'll be able to work and be able to step in. And obviously it might take a while to get together, but but it's not that they're going to be immobile.
Yeah.
You know, working the upper body's nice, but when you talk to hockey players and when they're hurt, they all say, listen, I can get on the bike, I can train, I can still, you know, I can get on the weight machine and push up or whatever. So if they have to be hurt, maybe, you know, as opposed to Datsuk, Datsuk's got a lower body injury and he can't do anything. You know, I mean, he might, you know, pump a weight or something, I guess, or do a push-up, but or a pull-up, but you know, I guess what I'm saying is it's at least good that it isn't lower body for these guys, because the Red Wings could really use them in their lineup.
Well, I would agree, and you know, I've had players tell me through the years that if they're off the ice for 48 hours, only 48 hours, they notice the difference in terms of their conditioning. I mean, these are finely tuned, you know, vehicles. You know, right. So like with a hand injury, the point you're making is he can get out there and skate
right,
still.
Right.
You know, which is you know, kind of important. And I also agree. You know, we've talked about this before. They have a limited number of guys who are big-bodied, space-eating forwards who, you know, will be at the front of the line when shenanigans break out. And you know, Abdicator is you know, a key member of that small group, and you know, they were hoping that Cole was going to be there as well. So you know, now and that even though it doesn't have the same factor it had years ago in terms of physical play, at least I don't think it does, it still plays a factor because it's the wear that it takes to deal with those players. And you know, the Red Wings can take whatever hitting is thrown at them. They've proved that for years. You know, there's two kinds of toughness. There's dishing it out and pounding people, and then there's the ability to take whatever you throw at them, and the Red Wings have always had that. But you know, the difference is they're not wearing down the other teams unless they have players like Abdicator and Cole out there who are, you know, driving the net and forcing them to exert energy to, you know, to slow them down. It takes energy to compete with the Abdicator in front of the net, just like Holmstrom. I mean, Holmstrom wore down the other team because they were constantly having to deal with him trying to, you know, screen the goalie. And you know, you don't think of Holmstrom as a physical player, but you know, he had enough impact on wearing down the other team.
You know, I don't know if this is true or not, but this was an opposition writer, shall we say, told me that one time Chris Pronger said about Thomas Holmstrom that the only way he's ever really truly going to stop him is if he was going to shoot him. He would have to literally shoot him. and Pronger said, I can't do that. I don't know if that's true or not, but really, I mean, Homer was incredible, and now that he's not here, how effective he was. You know, I believe he's one of those players that after he's gone, his star really even ascends more, because he was really pretty unique. I know that there's players that try to emulate him, and you know, Dino Ciccarelli, for being a small guy, you know, was kind of Thomas Holmstrom mini, or you know, you could say that Thomas Holmstrom was Dino Ciccarelli jumbo. But I mean, that is truly an art form and a skill, especially tipping the puck the way he did. You know, and plus, you know, Homer had his own, you know, his home language. I always love him saying that he was always in Scotty's dog yard instead of Scotty's doghouse. But you know, so it would be great to get them back. But now let's look at these last two games, Kevin. I know we're going to try to do something on Friday. I know you're traveling to Pittsburgh, and we're running out of time because you have some previous engagements, and for some reason we had some technical problems here at the beginning of the show of the Red and White Authority episode 14. Montreal, you know, I'm looking for a point, all right? I mean, let me be honest. You know,
yeah.
Any way you can get a point, get that thing into overtime, and I'll take my chances. The Canadiens seem to be a team, for whatever reason, and maybe it's Carey Price. I mean, there was a game, and Mickey brought it up, where they were the dominant team for 58 minutes and ended up losing that game in overtime. And I think there was a controversial play, I can't remember, that I was PO'd about, you know, and I can't be that angry because I kind of forgot about it. But, you know, there have been times, and here in Detroit, I mean, they've been good, really, for the most part, good close games, but the Canadiens are finding a way to beat Detroit, and Detroit somehow has not found a way to beat Montreal.
Yeah, well, I've said this continuously all season. You know, the Montreal Canadiens, and I haven't looked today, but they're either probably the 23rd or the 24th ranked offense in the NHL. You know, they they struggle to score goals. They've been opportunistic scorers, but they have not, just filled the net on a regular basis. They're not the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is not a team that can score at will. I think the Red Wings offense is better. In fact, I know it is, than the Montreal Canadiens. They have more dangerous forwards. Now, they do have some potential with, Galchenyuk is getting better with each passing game, but, Pacioretty is hurt now.
Right.
So there's some issues with this Montreal team. Like, I know what you're saying in terms of just, you just hope for the point, but I think they're vulnerable. I think the Canadiens are vulnerable. I think you have to just basically figure out a way to beat Carey Price. Right now, he is the most important player on that team by far. Like, it's not even close. And I think you can't always say that on some teams where, the Lightning, like, what's the most formidable aspect of their team? Is it Big Ben Bishop? Is their offense? Is it their improved defense? Their second line some nights is better than their first. Montreal is about Carey Price. And if you can figure out a way to beat him, I think you have an opportunity to win this game on Thursday, and also if you have to face them in the postseason, I think you have an opportunity against them. Most fans I know would rather face the Tampa Bay Lightning because of the Carey Price factor. But if it was me, I'd want to face the Canadiens just because their offense isn't formidable. If you could play strong defense against them, you have a chance to win.
Well, but the one thing about Montreal, and in a strange sense, Ottawa as of late, they're very opportunistic, and I think that and they take and they take some chances because they have confidence in their goaltending, which we've touched upon, and you can see that it's like, hey, I'm PK Subban, make it a 3-on-0. I don't care, Carey's got it. I'm going to rush every time I can. I'm taking chance after chance, and it seems against Detroit. And I've watched several Canadian games because of the center ice package that I have. But is that any mistake that the opposition makes against Montreal, and I give it a credit to their team, they're able to capitalize on. I mean, they have an uncanny ability to make something happen when it seems like virtually nothing is happening. I can't tell you how many Canadian games I've watched this year, Kevin, where I'm almost going to sleep. I mean, Price is great and he's making some great saves, but there just isn't a whole lot of action, and then bam, they're up to nothing.
I'd agree with that, and I said it earlier, they did have a blip after this, but for the longest time they were the most consistent team in the NHL. They were finding ways to win every night, and I agree with you. The ability to look like you're doing it with mirrors is also a kind of a sign of how well a team is going, and they do. When they need a goal, they get a goal. When they need to play well defensively, they do it. When they need Carey Price to be unbelievable, he has been. They've been a real strong team, but now they're dealing with a little adversity. Pacioretty's hurt. I don't think they've been quite as strong of late as they've been previously, and it's just a feeling I have that that they have some vulnerability. The thing that worries me about the Lightning is they just have this ability in any given game to get 5 or 6 goals, and the Canadiens don't have that ability, not that I can see. So they're going to beat you. They're going to beat you 3-2 or 2-1. Where Tampa Bay Lightning, they might throw a 6 spot up on you. They've got some dangerous forwards, and I don't know whether or not the Red Wings have the defensive ability to slow down that offense. The Red Wings defense will really have to play at a high level to defeat the Lightning. Where I think I just think Montreal, it's just a feeling I have, just has more vulnerability.
Well, yeah, I certainly agree with that. I mean, if you look at it, I guess the Tampa Bay Lightning could be the ultimate playoff team for Paul Coffey, a team that is capable of winning playoff games 8-6. I mean, they can
good, yeah.
They can. They can really put up a lot of goals, and I know we've talked about Carolina. It's their last game of the year. Some of those guys will be the last time they ever wear the flying puck Hurricane logo. So I think they'll be all psyched up. Their uniforms are very. I like the way they've modified them, but they're kind of like they're Red Wing inspired. Wouldn't you say that Pete Carmona's kind of had the Red Wings in mind when he decided what Tampa was going to wear as opposed to what Hartford used to wear. But that's neither here nor there. There's a lot of stories, playoff scenarios abound. I mean, the Red Wings, it could go so many ways depending on what Boston does tonight against Washington and, teams falling out. But maybe the most interesting story, and hopefully I'm not spilling the beans here, Kevin, but you're on your way to Pittsburgh, and I would imagine that what's going on with the Penguins right now, in my mind, is one of the most, if not the most captivating story in the NHL.
Well, certainly it is. And, the idea that, Malkin and Crosby could be out of the playoffs, and, especially after what happened last summer when both Ray Shero and Dan Bylsma were, unceremoniously moved out of their jobs. This is a huge story. And, for the most part, I think it's really been injuries. Like, they have just been brutalized, and for the Red Wings can understand, they've lost Pascal Dupuis, who was playing on their top line. That's like losing the abdicator for the entire season.
Right.
They lost Mata, who was their number 2 defenseman. He's a highly skilled offensive and defensive defenseman. The Red Wings really don't. I mean, it's Cronwell is the closest thing they have to that. So they've lost them for the whole season. Now they're dealing without Letang. They're dealing without Christian Ehrhoff, who are both offensive-minded defensemen who are crucial to their offense, and they haven't been able to overcome that. And some of the guys they were counting on to step up, Bo Bennett, it hasn't happened for him. Holmquist is now. Crosby's missed some games as well. They have not found a way. Like, I don't think we even have any idea how good this Penguins team is because they haven't been together the whole season. They've really been banged up, and I think right now, it feels like the Penguins have the best chance of falling out. The way the Senators came back on them, they seem a little demoralized to me. So, I'm going into Pittsburgh, and I also want to do a piece with Crosby. Like, whoever wins that scoring title, and it could be Crosby, is going to end up with the least number of points anyone in the last 40 years. So I want to ask him about that as well.
Well, it was interesting. Last night, watching the Sportsnet before the Ottawa game, their pregame show, Bob McKenzie said, listen, you have to win a game. You have Crosby and Malkin in your lineup. No excuses. Just get 2 points. And I'm thinking, wow, that's, with all the injuries and all that, guys, he threw the gauntlet down. And, for the most part, Sid the Kid was down on the ice. It seemed like a dozen times in that game last night. Ottawa took it to him. But with that said, Kevin, I want to end it because I know, we were actually longer. I know you got to go, but I did Grand Rapids Radio, ESPN 961 yesterday. It's always fun to do that. And I was asked a question by a hockey fan. We had Jeff Blashill on, and after Blashill, who do you think, if Todd McClellan is let go in San Jose and they didn't make the playoffs, and Dan Bylsma, who gets a job first in the NHL? Now, I said, well, there's going to be all kinds of factors, and when guys are fired, and the playoff scenarios, and what teams might do with coaches that are in the playoffs. But let's just say there's no coaching changes or nobody fired until after the Stanley Cup is awarded. Everybody's out there, including Mike Babcock. But between those two, who do you think would get a job first?
Well, you would think it's Dan Bylsma who has a Stanley Cup, but I think it's McClellan. I think he's highly respected around the league, and I think Bylsma has had jobs have been open and he didn't get them. So I would say McClellan is a guy that I've heard mentioned around as being a candidate that everyone would be interested. So, but both of them are going to end up with jobs sooner or later.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's why Kevin and I are doing this show. That's almost verbatim what I told the guy. I think it's Todd too, but I do think Bylsma is going to get a job. So anyway, we're going to end on that very positive note. Kevin and I in agreement on something, but usually we are. Kevin, I know we're going to try to do this on Friday, depending on how your schedule is. Enjoy Pittsburgh. It's always a lot of fun. We'll see. I'm under the impression that unless Detroit gets 0 points out of these next 2 games, that they're in, right? They're in.
Oh yeah. I would be stunned if they didn't get in because they're going to get some points in these games. All they have to do is play as well as they did against Carolina last night, and they're going to get some points. They really are. I mean, I think they may beat Montreal. With the way things are going now with Pacioretty injured, and I think that would really bolster their confidence if they could lay a win on the
Well,
Canadiens.
Kevin, I'm going to make your day. If they beat Montreal, I'm predicting Luke Glendening is going to have a hat trick.
All right.
All right, I
good.
can hear the phone. Thanks, Kevin. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Red and White Authority, episode 14. I'm Art Regner for Kevin Allen. Have a safe and pleasant one, everyone. Enjoy the games, and we will see you on Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.